There is some lovely work going on now at Talavera Station near Surat. We are being kept alive by the great battles of the wool, which daily come off at Talavera Station with varying success. The Glass family, owner of Talavera and Thomas's employer, having come to grief. Mr. Clark Kennedy arrived here from Toowoomba with instructions to collar and thereupon proceeds to attach the wool on the carrier's drays for the Bank of New South Wales. The Mercantile Bank has a lien on the wool, and Mr. Mellifont, the locum tenens, holds the fort for the Mercantile. A general engagement ensued in which Mr. Kennedy was smitten hip and thigh from Dan to Beersheba, which borrows an Old Testament reference for being roughed up from top to bottom, and the bank agent chucked out of the woolshed by Talavera Jack, one of the retainers of the House of Mellifont. Mr. Kennedy, the bank agent, went to town and got a warrant, and Senior Constable MacDonald apprehended him being Talavera Jack. It turns out Talavera Jack is John Condon, a Mellifont employee at Talavera Station, and little would the bank agent know is that the Senior Constable MacDonald and his wife Nora had been witnesses to Mellifont's marriage to wife Marianne only 3 weeks earlier. So it's unlikely that the local policeman would go any extra mile for a bank agent from Toowoomba. Thomas Mellifont had reported the previous September that the station will shear 47,000 sheep that season, so the value and quantity of the wool was significant. 4 days later, the St George Standard newspaper of February 26, 1879, provides more detail on the battles of the wool. At the court hearing before R.T. Taylor Esquire, John Condon, aka Talavera Jack, was charged with unlawfully assaulting John Clark Kennedy, and Thomas Mellifont was charged with aiding, abetting and counselling. Kennedy deposed, "I am the manager of Talavera Station for the Bank of New South Wales. Yesterday at about 12 o'clock, Mr. Mellifont told me the dray and wagon had come to the shed to load wool. I protested against the removal of the wool and went up with Mr. Watson and another man named Peters and found the wool shed locked. Condon, aka Talavera Jack, opened the door. I went to the shed and protested, saying the removal of the wool was illegal, telling Condon also that the wool belonged to the Bank of New South Wales. Condon pulled a bale down onto the floor and with Mr. Mellifont's help rolled it towards the door. Watson, Peters and myself stopped it when it was about a yard from the door. Mr. Mellifont and I had about an hour's argument, and it being dinner time, we agreed to leave it until after then. The bale was in the same place after dinner, and Condon and Mellifont tried to roll it. I resisted, and Mellifont told Condon to put me out. After a few words, Condon jumped over the bale and said, "I'll soon put you out of that." He made a rush at me and I warded him off with my right hand. He then rushed again and seized me. We had a scuffle and he threw me down twice on the battens outside the door. I got up again and he said, "If you don't give in, I'll throw you off the battens and break your bloody back or neck." I went back to the shed and so did Condon. He broke the glass of my watch. I went into Surat and got a warrant. Mr. Mellifont told Condon to put me out of the wool shed. He told me if I did not give in, it would be worse for me. And Condon would obey his orders to put me out and probably break some of my bones. Kennedy, addressing Mellifont in the court, "You did tell Condon to break my bones." And Kennedy, addressing the bench, "I got scratched by Condon on the hand," whereby Kennedy exhibits the scratch to the court. The presiding magistrate said this was a case between two banks, and that it was a question of title, and he did not think any unnecessary violence had been used. Epilogue, and a great-grandson's thoughts on the incident. It seems to me that the more the world changes, the more it stays the same. Kennedy, the bank agent, apparently never considered that the local constable, Alexander MacDonald, whom he sought justice from, had cordial relations with great-grandfather Thomas Mellifont. This policeman, his wife Nora, and even the presiding magistrate, Richard Taylor Esquire, had officiated and witnessed the Mellifont marriage between Thomas and Marianne only 3 weeks earlier. All of them would have attended the Christmas races only 2 months earlier, where Thomas Mellifont had officiated as judge. Thomas had also actively collected donations in the community to fund the building of this church building, which, although altered in the 1930s, still stands today. I suspect great-grandfather Thomas did the right thing as the manager of Talavera Station. The year's wool harvest needed to be dispatched, and the bullock wagon stood ready to be loaded. What else was going to happen? Most of all for bank agent Kennedy, with the wool from 47,000 sheep at the stake, and with 2 banks arguing over title to the wool, surely it matters not who has possession when the wool is loaded onto the wagons in Surat, but rather who has possession when the wool is unloaded further east and exchanged for cold hard cash.